Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing from you. I want to hear from you. So I asked you some questions yesterday, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I completely forgot to ask questions. I intended to ask questions yesterday about if you thought you would contribute to No Rogues Allowed if I opened that option up. And I didn't wait for answers. Of course, I've already basically done it. It's not live on the site yet, but last night and a little bit today, I've gone and I've got room creation and item creation done, or chest creation, like a container creation done. And those were entirely fun new puzzles because it's sentence structure, right? A room in this game is really just a couple of sentences at best. Sometimes it's just like 5 words. But it's basically, you walk into a room, you see this, or you fall into a smelly pit or whatever. And so I had to figure out some fun ways to make all of those sentences, and then I had to figure out the same thing for containers, like a box or a chest or a pouch or a corpse. Things that you would normally search in a video game. So it'd be like on the floor you see a thing, and so I had to come up with all the structure for the language of the game, and then build tables of just words and stuff to get this all going, because the ultimate plan is, what I envision in my head is, when you land on the landing page, you're just going to get a Mad Lib. It'll just be like a kind of a generic Mad Lib. It'll have some spots to fill in that will be kind of randomized. So every time you go to the front page, maybe one time it asks you to fill out some stuff about the item, another time it asks you to fill out stuff about the room. You'll fill some of that stuff out, and then it'll create a new paragraph or whatever. That's the plan. But in going through all of that, this app has been designed entirely from scratch with PHP vanilla and my own quote-unquote framework, the Chevee Framework, which is really just a system of includes, and well, no, that's what it is. It's just a system of includes. Essentially, you request something, and I go churn that stuff, and then include some files that can process that and put it on the screen. And it's one of those situations where I have reinvented the wheel. And I have long advocated for reinventing the wheel, not just in programming, in everything. If you want to learn why we do something, try doing it differently, and you'll learn. You'll learn probably very quickly why we do something differently. If you don't understand why books are bound the way books are bound, they're in what are they called? They're in flights or something like that, which is like the individual sections. If you look at the spine of your book, you can kind of see them, and they're sewn. And if you don't know why books are bound that way, try to bind it a different way. Make a book of your own some other way, and you'll learn. You'll learn why. If you are interested in woodworking and you don't understand why we worry about wood movement over the seasons, then build something rigid and see what happens to it. You'll learn. Like, that's how you learn, is by challenging the norm. And in the last few decades, yeah, I would say few decades. I would say even in the 90s, frameworks weren't particularly popular. They weren't mature enough to really dive into. People were using them, but they weren't everything. Now, step one of designing a project, of programming a project, is choosing a framework. That's part one, right? Whether it's going to be Vue.js, or it's going to be Laravel, or it's going to be Ruby on Rails, or it's going to be whatever. Step one is to pick a framework and go with it. And that requires you to learn somebody else's structure, somebody else's programming structure, somebody else's folder structure, somebody else's control structure. You have to learn all of that on top of the programming part. Now, the benefit of that is, once you have learned it, it makes creating an app super quick. Like, those things do all of the things that I've had to do on the back end of including all of these files, making sure that all the correct resources are loaded when you needed them or not. Instead of having to manually do all of that stuff, those frameworks stitch all that together for you. when I didn't use one, because I like reinventing the wheel. And I've been using the quote-unquote Chevee Framework for a decade now or something like that, for a while. I've written a lot of software this way, and I like it. It makes sense to me. It is a little bit repetitive in places, but I like when I go to a file and I read that file. I know what that file needs. I know what it contains, and I don't have to spend a whole lot of time trying to figure out where this thing came from. Okay, what are that? I don't have to use my text editor's search and replace or whatever. I can know. I know where that came from. And truthfully, when it comes to includes, if you know what programming is, an include is just saying, you load up a document, and in that document it says include this document. It's just like you insert that document right there. So say you had a 2-page PDF, and in the middle of that PDF you say include this PDF, then suddenly that PDF, that other PDF gets included. Now you have a 3-page PDF. That's what an include is. And it's really not any different than writing a requires statement or a uses statement in like Laravel. In Laravel you'll say it uses this. That means go get that because I need it, right? Or a class. It uses a class, essentially, is what it means. It means I need this class because it has all these functions available to me. What I'm doing is really not any different. It just, I'm not doing it object-oriented style. So instead of having a, uses this thing, I have a require statement or an include statement. And so the whole point of this is, this originally started as just a landing page where you could make some weapons, and that was going to be it. But it's, slowly been evolving, and now I have multiple pages because you're going to be going to the landing page now to get this kind of Mad Lib, fill in the blank, help me, create more atmosphere for the game. Or you can still view the original item generator by going to the, clicking a menu item and going there instead. And there'll be other options like that in the future where you can generate different things. And of course, because I'm using the Chevee framework, and I didn't start it the same as I've always have, the way that I set up my gets, the URLs aren't mapped the same. All this means, like where you point to, what you type in your browser is not what you see. And because of that, I had to go back and kind of replug in a bunch of stuff. And that can be frustrating. That's the time when you go, man, I really wish I'd used a framework for this. The difference is, without a framework, I don't have a whole bunch of overhead. I know exactly what pieces of code are being loaded at what points in time. And I don't have to guess, or I don't have to write some sort of weird, that's called middleware, and a lot of frameworks where you say, normally you're going to do this, but on these specific things, break that and use this instead. And I don't like it. It introduces what I call programmer magic, and programmer magic can be great for doing tasks like, for instance, I have a folder of files, and I need all of those files to always be available to everything. So I can do some programmer magic where I just say, include all the stuff in this folder, and that's what happens. But when there's middleware that's saying include all the stuff in this folder except this one file, it needs to do this, and that it kind of gets lost in this muddly mess, I don't like that. It bothers me. I would rather be explicit in the code part and be overly cautious and write in a whole bunch of tests to make sure that it's not doing something wrong than to rely on magic. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just paranoid, and I like to be very explicit when I'm writing code, even though I'm writing PHP, which is the opposite of explicit. It is what it is. But I've been working on it. I've got I can make the paragraph now that says you're in this room, you see this. I can do that. Now I just need to figure out a way. I want to write a couple of generic, you walk into a whatever, and then I can take out some of those words and let you fill them in. And that will be the Mad Lib part of the whole thing. And when you fill them in, it will get added into my database, and that will help me grow the word lists so that it's continuously more interesting. So that's what I'm working on. Going to continue working on that. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow. Today's word you should know is beguiling. It is an adjective meaning charming, bewitching, and enchanting. The beguiling charm Monica learned at finishing school more than makes up for her vapid personality. Beguiling. B-E-G-U-I-L-I-N-G.